What's up, everybody? Gamer Critic here. It is that time of year again, end of the year, meaning Game Awards season, also meaning it is the time we all come together and debate on which 6 games are going to be nominated for the Game Awards. And right out the gate, 2025 is going to be a really interesting year for the Game Awards because I honestly think it's really difficult to deduce what games are going to be nominated for this year. And I need to be clear, it is not for lack of quality at all. It is the fact that 2025 had such an overabundance of quality throughout the entire year that it's actively difficult to deduce which games are going to be picked and which games are going to be left to the side. Because barring one game, I think you could make a very strong argument, an incredibly strong argument, for like 11 or 12 different games that came out in 2025 that could actively deserve to be in that top 6. There are games at the start of this year that I truly thought were locks for the top 6. Barring that one game that I already mentioned, which I'll get to later, KCD2, DS2, Split Fiction, the Indie Goat, Blueprints, 4 games that at the start of the year I thought were locked in. But then the year just kept going. You got Ghost of Yotei, you got Hades 2, you got Hollow Knight freaking Silksong. Hollow Knight Silksong actually came out in this year, and most importantly, it was freaking incredible. And mind you, I'm just talking about games that I played and games that I think are some of the best from this year. I've been hearing some people say that Ninja Gaiden 4, Silent Hill F, Dispatch, The Altars, Doom, all of those games I have heard some type of argument for that they deserve to be in the top 6. And honestly, for the majority of those games said, I can see the argument. Do I agree? Not necessarily, but I can understand. We didn't even entertain the possibility that this is not even including games in 2024 that came out in December. Do you guys remember another fantastic game that came out in December 2024? A little game called Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. A game that when I played it, I absolutely loved. But since it came out in 2024, that now makes it eligible for 2025. It cannot be understated how stacked 2025 was and why it's so difficult to decide what games, again barring one, are going to be going head to head for 2025. Now, mind you, these are not objectively my top 6 games of the year. I'm just saying that now. I'm just saying that these are the games that I think, just based off reception, popularity, and impact, these are the games that we are going to see in the top 6. I feel like this will be a very interesting discussion to have, but here we go. The 6 games that I think are going to be for the Game Awards 2025. Let's start with that one game that I really didn't want to talk about too much because I think it's the one game that is obvious. Come on, it's obvious. I'm not even going to entertain the idea that Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is not going to be here. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is not only the only game here that I'm certain is going to be on the list, I still think to this day it is the front runner. Just point blank period. It's the one game that is still being talked about and praised constantly to this day. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Loved Clair Obscur. It is truly a great game and I love it. So if it gets its spot in the top 6, absolutely deserved. The presentation was phenomenal. It had a great story. It had good combat. And if we're talking about just the sheer quality of the product, especially just how small the company that product is coming from, Clair Obscur Expedition 33 deserves all the freaking praise, truly. But like I said, that's the obvious one, right? I want to talk about the 5 other spots because this is where you really gotta like compare and contrast, not just the critical reception, but staying power. How popular it was, if it lived up to the hype, etc., etc. And I think potentially the only other game from 2025 that reaches that same level of Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is Hollow Knight Silksong. Hollow Knight Silksong, again, another freaking masterpiece. What Silksong managed to achieve with a team of 3 people is already crazy enough. But it's not just the critical reception of Hollow Knight Silksong, it is the backstory, just the entire backstory of Silksong that is deserving of praise. 7-year-long development basically went cold turkey, completely silent, only to re-announce the game with its release date 2 weeks earlier. And then, despite all that hype, not only was Silksong popular, it was so popular that it crashed just about every store. If nothing else, it shows just how anticipated and hyped Silksong was. And the fact that with all that hype, it still managed to deliver, yeah, I'd say that's worthy of a spot. I'd say that's absolutely worthy of a spot. But I do think that we get not one, but 2 big indie games in our top 6. And the other one is Hades 2. Now, Hades 2 doesn't necessarily have the same hype levels as Silksong or Clair Obscur. It's not being necessarily as talked about or really not even selling as well. We really don't know. We don't have any sales figures to go off of. But what I will say is this, let's not forget that Hades 2, it beat Clair Obscur and Silksong as the highest rated game on Metacritic. That is very impressive. And rightfully so. Supergiant is one of those studios that just doesn't miss, and Hades 2 is just an example. Hades 2 is Hades 1, but better. That is the best thing you can say for a sequel. It takes a little time for Hades 2 to really earn that weighty 2 at the end, right? But man, once you start noticing the differences, it really does start to feel like its own thing, and it's freaking incredible. And while the fan base isn't as big as Clair Obscur's or Silksong's, Hades 2 is still pretty talked about. I see some people on social media giving it its love, its flowers, and again, highest rated game of the year. That's not nothing. That is very impressive, and I'd say that earns a spot. The next one is interesting because I don't think it's necessarily about quality or hype. Not to say the game isn't good, it's actually really freaking great, but I don't think that's the reason it's gonna be here. It's gonna be here because Jeff Keighley loves his man crush, that is Kojima. Right up there with Clair Obscur. I'd be gobsmacked, just absolutely floored if Death Stranding 2 on the beach wasn't here. Again, want to be clear. Death Stranding 2 on the beach is really freaking good. Just for its visuals and gameplay alone, I think is really freaking good. And I'd even go as far and say, as far as story moments go, Death Stranding 2 has some of the best story moments I've seen all year. Full stop. Especially the ending. The ending blew me away. But I digress. While Death Stranding 2 on the beach is really good, I feel like this is really just gonna be here because it's Kojima. If Kojima makes a game, it's going to be in the top 6. It's like one of those unspoken rules of the Game Awards, like thou shalt not, etc., etc. Thou shalt not have a Kojima game and not have it be in the top 6. That's really all I got for Death Stranding 2. I think Death Stranding 2 is going to be there simply because it is Kojima. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Again, Death Stranding 2 is just really good, so I'm not upset about it, but let's be real. It's really mostly going to be there because Kojima and Jeff are homies. So, yeah, I'm expecting that. This is the one game that I think will be nominated that I did not play, and it really freaking sucks because I thought Donkey Kong Bonanza looked really good, and I wanted to play it, but I'm also broke and I don't have the money to buy a Nintendo Switch 2 yet. So for now, I can just talk about why I think Donkey Kong Bonanza is going to be here. Outside of the fact that I think it looks good, it just objectively looks really fun. Let's not forget, 1, it is Nintendo. So if it's a Nintendo game, it's most likely going to be in the top 6. 2, it is a Nintendo game that was highly praised. I think it's in the top 10 for best rated game of 2025. So if it's a Nintendo game, and most importantly, it is rated extremely well, it's going to be in the top 6. Again, I can't really speak on the quality of the game personally. It's the one game I didn't play. I really wanted to, but Donkey Kong Bananza, it is probably going to be here because it's Nintendo, and particularly it is highly rated Nintendo. And then the last spot. So the last spot, I kind of did some back and forth debating on, because I think you can make, again, a very strong argument for a lot of things. But at the end of the day, I thought that rounding all these games out, it's still missing that big first-person cinematic game, right? Not counting the Death Stranding 2. I think Death Stranding 2 is the Kojima entry, right? I don't count it as that cinematic entry, even though it is. I know it is. Just hear me out. When I think of cinematic entry, I'm thinking of something like Ghost of Yotei. It is a game that got a lot of hype the second the first trailer dropped. And right now, I'm playing the game. I'm like 18 hours in. And right now, from what I'm playing, it is really good. I was one of the guys who didn't love Ghost of Tsushima as much as everyone else did. But it is good. It's really good. I'm enjoying the story. I'm enjoying the combat. But I just feel like it's not necessarily for the quality. This is, at the end of the day, a big corporate award show, and there needs to be something that looks good. That really makes it clear, like, wow, games aren't just games. You know what I mean? And I feel like Ghost of Yotei, with its cinematic flair, it just seems like a lock. It seems like that game that is just a staple of what these awards would like to highlight. So personally, would I want Ghost of Yotei up there? It's debatable, but like I said, this is not what I want to be there. This is what I think will most likely be there. So those are the 6 games that I am predicting to see for the Game of the Year noms 2025. Do you see what I mean? My precious KCD2 is not on that list. So many games are missing here. KCD2 and Split Fiction in particular, such incredible games. But that's what I mean. 2025 is just so stacked. It's difficult to deduce which games are going to be here and which aren't. Barring Clair Obscur, Expedition 33, even the ones that I'm a little more certain about, I'm not completely sold on. I think games like Death Stranding 2 and Silksong, while are more likely to be in the top 6, it's not a lock. I could see a reality where Silksong is replaced by maybe Blueprints, or Death Stranding 2 is replaced by Split Fiction or freaking KCD 2. And I can definitely see some scenarios where DK Bananza, Ghost of Yotei, or Hades 2 are replaced by some of the other games I just said. But me, if I were a betting man, I would put my money on Clair Obscur, Hollow Knight Silksong, Hades 2, Death Stranding 2 on the beach, Donkey Kong Bananza, and Ghost of Yotei. That's my guess. We are going to find out real soon. We're either going to get the announcements either this week or next week, and I'm very interested to see how that goes. But let me know what you think. If you agree or disagree, please let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. It helps a ton. If you want to stay up to date with what I'm doing, you can follow me on Instagram. That is @TheGamerCritic. My next video is going to be a quick review on Dispatch, a really great episodic game, but I will expand on that more when I make the video. So be good people, and I will talk to all of you very soon. All right, peace.